Hi, everybody. If you're here for the Commissioner's October 27th public meeting, you're in the right place. If you're joining us virtually today, I'm just going to quickly put up some instructions on the screen for turning on live captioning. Here we go. If you're joining us in the Sophie Moise room, we will have live captioning on the screens throughout the meeting. And we also have assistive listening devices available. If you would like one of those, please just come and see me and we'll get one for you. We ask that all speakers today please remember to speak slowly and clearly during the meeting. It helps with the captions accuracy. And if you have any questions or concerns otherwise, please come and find me during the meeting. I will turn it over to Commissioner Vero.
Thanks so much, Violet, and welcome everyone. We'll call the meeting to order and begin with the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Missoula County acknowledges that this event takes place in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish and Kalispel people. Well, we have a public announcement, but before we get into that, we wanted to do a little rearrangement of the hearings. Can you raise your hand if you're here for Sharon? And I think, as Bert had suggested, maybe we'll move that to E, or the first E to A, so it'll be the first hearing. Is that a problem for staff? No, but we're gonna do some other things first. Yeah. Sorry, Bailey. Okay. You're late. Well, we have an important proclamation we'd like to share with you all today, recognizing the conservation achievements of Mr. Jim Cusker here. And we have not organized ourselves. Okay, or we could all take we can all read a section. You can start.
Do the first two. Let's number up 1, 2. Yeah. No, I'll do the first two. Whereas a healthy agricultural sector is essential to the well-being of our community due to benefits such as food security, open space, wildlife habitat, economic activity, health promotion, and quality of life. And whereas the people of Missoula County, both in their individual and collective capacities, are at the center of ensuring Missoula County has a vibrant and successful communities. And
whereas Jim Cusker, a resident of Missoula County, has spent decades advocating for and advancing the protection of open lands, farms, ranches, and supporting the agricultural heritage of Western Montana. And whereas he has been a tireless advocate for the importance of agriculture and was instrumental in the shaping of the open lands conservation work in Missoula County. And
whereas Jim has been a dedicated volunteer serving on the original Missoula County Open Lands Working Group in 2005, which contributed to the creation of the first countywide open space bond. And whereas Jim was first appointed by the Missoula Board of County Commissioners to the Missoula County Open Land Citizens Advisory Committee when it was created in 2006, and has served as a member of the committee for 16 years, and has voluntarily participated on specific working groups focused on protection of agricultural land in Missoula County. And
whereas Jim has also spent decades serving as a dedicated board member for local nonprofit organizations, including Five Valleys Land Trust and the Community Food and Agriculture Coalition, and is also a dedicated member of the Grass Valley French Ditch Company.
Now, therefore, we, the Missoula County Board of County Commissioners, do hereby recognize Jim Cusker for his outstanding efforts and public service and open lands conservation and protection of the agricultural heritage in Missoula County, and for inspiring others to contribute through public service. And we're not quite done yet. I know there's some folks here who have a few words they'd like to share. So come on up to the microphone.
My name is Wendy Ninteman, and I appreciate the opportunity to say a couple of really quick words because anyone who knows Jim knows that he is more comfortable giving accolades than receiving. So please don't hold this against me, Jim. Okay. First thing I just want to mention is that Jim is first and foremost a teacher. And I don't know if you all saw what happened, but 1963 biology. And that was the first thing I was going to mention was you don't have to go very far in Missoula to find someone who took his class in high school and remembers. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't remember who my science teacher was in high school. I don't even remember if I had science in high school. But that couldn't have been more perfect. So and even to this day, he is mentoring teachers and students. I just learned that last time we got together. Still doing that as well as mentoring people throughout our community. But equally importantly about Jim is he's also a learner. And I think that's such an amazing thing about him. He's so curious. He is always a student and he's always really willing to take a look at the hard issues and, as we call them, the big ideas and tackle the unanswerable questions. And that's a really strong combination today, but I know that's not why we're here. We're here to honor his commitment and passion for the landscape of Western Montana and specifically working lands. Missoula County's agricultural lands that provide the quality soil and the growing conditions for farmers and ranchers. And it's those lands that gave this place the nickname the Garden City before Missoula even had a name, which I didn't realize until today. And I first met Jim early in 1989. I was the director at Five Valleys Land Trust, following in Greg Tollefson's footsteps. And I came from the private sector and really didn't have a clue about nonprofits or land trusts. And I walked in the office and I said, how does this work? Like, how do we get paid? Oh, you walk over to the post office and there's checks in the mailbox. And how do we get projects? Well, these landowners just walk in the door, they seek us out. And I was like, yeah, right, whatever. And then within literally a few months, first landowner to walk in the door for me was Jim Cusker, which I still can't believe my good fortune about that. And after that conversation that day, and then many more, we ended up doing a conservation easement on his family's ranch. And that was my first conservation project for a career that spanned about 30 years. And I think the reason I was able to do that work was because I've always had faith that there are people like you, Jim, out there stepping forward to do something that both meets their family's needs, but also always thinking about the greater good and the good of the landscape and the good of the people who live here. I hope those people never stop walking in the door. And Jim really taught me that trust is just as important a word as land is when you're doing a conservation project. And the last, I just want this one little story. I was thinking about Jim. A few years after I started at Five Valleys, we did a visioning process where we had to look at the valley, at Missoula Valley, but also Missoula County, thinking about what we wanted our community to look like in 50 or 100 years. And on my list, there was, protecting the hillsides, our scenic view shed. And I'll never forget Jim just standing up and saying, no, people have to live somewhere. And if they have to live up on the hillsides instead of on that really good stuff down there on the bottom, then that's what we need to do. And I just really appreciate how much I learned from Jim. And I feel so lucky to have known him all these years, and also that the county, is recognizing his contribution. You've enriched so many lives, Jim, mine and so many others, and you just remind us what true stewardship looks like. So thank you so much. And thank you.
Thanks, Wendy.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Bonnie Buckingham. I'm with the Community Food and Agriculture Coalition, and I just want to thank you for this opportunity to honor one of my favorite people in all of Missoula. Jim Cusker has been an inspiration and true example of what it means to be an active citizen of this community. I first met Jim when planning a field trip to look at the different issues of farming in the Missoula Valley. And Jim took me on a visual history lesson of farming in this area. And as we drove, he pointed out various farms, ranches, where processing had been, where the markets were in years past. And having grown up here, he had watched many changes from early farm truck days to today's resurgence of small, localized agriculture. And Jim spoke, as he always does, eloquently about the continued reliance on the land and the unique qualities of the water table and the soil here in the Missoula Valley. This first field trip with Jim inspired me and truly shaped then and continues to shape the work that we do at the Community Food and Agriculture Coalition. Jim was one of the early founders of CFAC. He has been a member of our board for the past 17 years. He helped frame our mission, always with that focus on that foundation of what it takes for building a local food and ag system. He has held a laser focus on the protection and preservation of our most precious resource, our premium soils in which to grow food. And he's the one who always shows up all these years, always speaks articulately, very passionately about the value of conservation. And when it seems like we're wavering or losing focus, he's there to remind me and all of us really of the value of staying the course. Jim understands the need to take the long look, realizing that change happens in increments and we have to be in it for the long haul. His dedication has never wavered, and we as a community are all the better for it. So thank you for honoring Jim today. There's no one more committed to this community and its long-term health and vibrance. And I am so very happy and honored to be able to share this honoring of Jim today. Thank you.
Thanks, Bonnie. Don't be shy.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you very much for that lovely proclamation. I think it was quite overblown, but I'm quite appreciative of it. I guess you might say that I was born with my roots in the soil. I still live and help manage the modest-sized farm ranch where I grew up. Dad moved the family over here from Wolf Point in 1938. During my time on the farm, I was able to enjoy all of the activities that were there, except when the work got too hard. And I found that working there gave me a very, very deep appreciation of this wonderful natural resource that we have, and that's fertile agricultural land, which is the productivity is enhanced thereof with adequate irrigation. So I was in 4-H. I was a 4-H leader. I was the superintendent of the sheep barn out of the fair. I sold vegetables at the first farmers market here in Missoula. Doing that, I certainly enjoyed and appreciated the amount of produce that you can grow on a very small piece of land. Now, agriculture, what do you think about it? I think you can make a very, very strong argument to point out that civilization as we know today could not have existed without the invention of agriculture. After all, our species came out of Africa 300,000 years ago. However, hunters, gatherers, and spreading essentially all over the globe, making their way finally to North and South America, up to perhaps 25,000 years ago. But then something very interesting happened, approximately 10 to 12,000 years ago. My species invented agriculture, which meant, hey, you don't have to be just a hunter and a gatherer. You can take these plants that we found by gathering as being extremely productive, and you can grow them yourself. And wow, was that ever an invention? Because once again, a relatively small chunk of land could produce sustainable produce for many, many people, meaning that there were many people who didn't have to go out and work in the fields. They could bring about all of the inventions that we have enjoyed since that time. Agriculture, I would maintain, is the very foundation of what we're enjoying in civilization today. Now, I've been extremely appreciative of the county government here in Missoula. Missoula County made its mark early on, much to the displeasure of many other counties in the state, by actually looking at and trying to obey the state law that said when subdivisions are proposed, you must examine that land and determine its impact on a number of important factors. First and foremost was agriculture. And the commissioners here attempted that, never did really get it done. And now the state government has closed that. However, I applaud the fact that through your leadership, you have helped guide the new zoning regulations, because embedded in those regulations are provisions that say if you're going to plan development on these larger chunks of land, you're going to have to put at least 50% of it in permanent protection for agricultural purposes. That's wonderful. The only bad thing about it that I can see is that takes care of the larger acreage. That's not happening with the smaller acreage, where it once again the conservation easement, which has been tried and true mechanism for providing the protection of agricultural land in perpetuity, has been used very, very effectively, mostly for preserving chunks of large land. Would it work for the preservation of small acreage? Extremely productive? Absolutely, especially since the precedent has been established. And what happens when this occurs? The owners of that protective land will be reimbursed for giving up their development rights. And that's what the open space bond, the first one passed in, what was it, 2006? Much of it has been used for that purpose. And it's worked wonderfully. Would it work again today? Absolutely. However, we've bumped into a few problems. Unfortunately, land trusts no longer seem to be excited in preserving small chunks of land. Consequently, we're going to have to find ways to protect those extremely valuable pieces of highly productive land. Hopefully, things can be worked out where conservation agents can be used there. So I'm looking forward in the future to be working through the Open Lands Committee, through CFAC, and of course, first and foremost, you three people up there. Because with you being the leaders in this county, it's very apparent that you are going to work with us to find some way to do that. We got to spend that bond money. The new bond was passed in 2018. The county share $7.5 million. We still had almost $500 million left over from the old bond. Some of that's still sitting there. So I look forward to working with you to go through that, find ways of protecting it. And well, thanks again, begrudgingly, for your remarks on the proclamation. And Wendy, I'll excuse you this time, but not next time, okay? So the first thing that we can do, of course, is to go out and vote. Vote for Dave for another term as county commissioner. Erlene and I have already. And of course, we intend to vote again on election day several times if possible. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
So we should be done there, but I just can't help myself. Sorry. So I'm just going to relay a little story, and there's kind of a rhyme between what I'm going to say and where we are right now. So I first heard Jim Cusker speak when he spoke in front of the county commissioners. I wasn't a county commissioner. I was a young farmer. This would have been in the early 2000s. And the meeting was over in the courthouse. I think it was upstairs, big soaring windows, beautiful view of Mount Sentinel. It was in the afternoon. The alpenglow was catching the mountains. You could just see the light shining back. And I don't remember the specific issue, but it had something to do with subdivision regs and soil. And I was there as a young farmer to testify, and it was a big deal. I'd never done such a thing, but the issue was really important. A developer came and spoke in front of the commissioners, and I remember sitting behind him, and he had a line cut across his back of his hair, perfect Barbara line, and a leather cell phone holster, a big guy. And he said, yeah, you want to protect that soil? A guy like me will buy that land, scrape the soil and sell it. That's what's going to happen. And the commissioners were kind of like, whoa, yeah. And he sat down, and then a representative from the Realtors Association came up, who was just impeccably like an Italian suit with soft leather shoes. And he said, the realtors had been left out of this. They had no voice, and talked about them being disregarded when the need for homes was so intense. And the commissioners were leaning in, and oh man, and I thought, this is going badly. And then I charged up there as a young farmer, and I don't remember what I said. And I don't think the commissioners remembered 5 minutes later. They did drink water and look out the window at the beautiful mountains. And then this guy walks up and he said, you know, I knew today there'd be people talking about development and there'd be people talking about real estate, but somebody had to speak for the soil. And he talked about his upbringing and that ground and his family and his neighbors and our community. And the commissioners voted to do the right thing. Well done, Jim, and you're still showing up. Thanks.
And you can get a copy of, oh gosh, what's the title?
Home Farm.
Home Farm at Fact and Fiction, where you can read a little deeper into that story. So check it out. And I had the pleasure of getting to serve with Jim Cusker on that the inaugural Open Lands Committee board in 2006. And he was such an example of patience and service and dedication. And we really look to him as an elder in his historical perspective, but he also could do it with an eye towards the future. And he always did it with that Cusker smile and the Cusker twinkle. And I think it was forged from years of being a high school teacher. But just, Jim, thank you so much for your example, and really appreciate it.
And I would just. We don't get to applaud much in this room. I mean, there will be no applause about the health code later, so let's take advantage of it. Well, maybe there will be. Sorry about that, Missoula City County Health Department person. So, yeah, Jim, it's been an honor, a privilege knowing you, working with you on issues related to agriculture. There were times in the past when it was a little lonely up here on the dais, speaking on behalf of land and soils and agriculture. That day is not today. We have a great team, and I think you have provided the inspiration that helps us get up in the morning and do what needs to be done for future generations here in the Missoula Valley and Missoula County. So thank you.
Hello, I'm Pat McDonald, and I just wanted to say a word or two. Number one, Jim Cusker, thank you for being such a wonderful citizen of our community. But in addition to that, I think that there is also applause due to a very fine wife, Erlene, who is always with him and takes care of him. And so we say to you, Erlene, thank you very much.
Well said, Hav. Thank you. Okay, well, thank you all again, and we'll continue on. And actually, I've lost my agenda. We don't care. Thank you. We'll start with Sharon, if that's okay.
Oh, public comment.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I got excited. Is there any public comment on items not on the agenda? Go ahead, sorry. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
We'd like to bring an issue to your attention that you may not be aware of.
Oh, yeah.
My name is Mike Surovic.
Oh, I'm sorry. A little slower, please.
Mike Surovic.
Thank
I'm a resident of the Target Range neighborhood. We own a property adjacent to Rosecrest Park, and the park managers have recently decided to put a lock on the gate and restrict vehicle access through the park to the residents of the area. Rosecrest is it's not really a park. It's a green strip of land that's about 50 feet wide at the narrowest and a half mile long. It's not actively managed by the county. The residents actually mow it and take care of it. And there's a steep hill that runs through the neighborhood. So vehicle access is not possible from the front. So many of the residents depend on vehicle access through the park for reasons not limited to agricultural. And the neighborhood is overwhelmingly against closing off access. I believe a neighbor of ours actually got a every household to sign a petition against locking the gate. So I wasn't sure if you guys were aware of it, but we wanted to come and voice our opposition to restricting vehicle access through Rosecrest Park.
Thank you, Mike. And sorry, go ahead.
He's my husband. I'm Lauren Redmore, and I also wanted to support his comment. We moved here in January, and part of the reason why we bought our house was because of that access. The hill makes it very difficult to manage about half of our land. Since moving in, we've been able to access the back part of our property through that green space, where we've invested in putting in a fence, building a lovely garden, speaking of access for agriculture. And again, it's really a community managed property. I have a PhD in Parks, Recreation and Tourism Sciences, and it is about as quintessentially community managed as you can imagine. We don't see people from outside the neighborhood, but it is very much a place where people respect who's doing what kind of in that space. Kids are able to play very peacefully. Vehicles access the park on occasion. I think, in the summer at prime time, maybe we see 3 or 4 vehicles a week. So it's really very low use, and all of the drivers drive really slowly. So we just wanted to raise that issue. It deeply impacts many of our neighbors who are farmers. We've got some folks that have orchards and hay fields, and so maintaining that access is really critical for those folks to continue their livelihoods. So really appreciate having this meeting. This is my first public county commissioner meeting, so really excited that I can present that issue to you all, and hopefully we can find a resolution that works for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we can.
Is there any more public comment? And yes, we have heard this, and we are working on this. Although
It
we
needs to
have
be
not
fixed.
seen the petition. But that's
Maybe
okay.
June- maybe
It's
Juniper has.
coming. Never mind. Okay. In
Coming up.
a moment. But is there any public comment on items not on the agenda? Okay, so what we're gonna do now, we have the oops, I'm sorry. Now it's a Sharon parking lot. We'll begin this public hearing. We'll start with a staff report, and then we'll take public comment. Then we'll close public comment, and then there'll be discussion.
Commissioner Vera, we have a hand up in the virtual audience.
Oh, and my monitor is not on, so thank you for
That's all
catching
right.
that.
Yeah, they just lowered their hand, but
Oh,
there was a hand up.
okay. Okay, not anymore. And thank you. If you guys see anything, let me know. Okay, Bailey, all you.
Okay, I will share my screen here. Hold on one second. Hopefully this pops up for everyone. Yay, okay. Okay. So this is regarding the Sharon parking lot public hearing. Hopefully I get the right screen to go to the right slide today. There we go. Okay, the subject property, it is not the subject property I have identified. It's actually in the MDT right of way, but I can't click on the MDT right of way. So I clicked on the most adjacent parcel in order to get everybody in there. And I know it's zoomed out, I will zoom in, but the property is, the MDT right of way is adjacent to 4691 Highway 200 East. So out in here past, little past East Missoula. This is, again, the property I've highlighted is adjacent to it. So it's in this right of way. If you can kind of see my mouse there, it is split zoned between residential and resource and open land. So the residential is the yellow or yellowy orangish color. And then the green is the resource open lands. So the project overview, Missoula County in collaboration with Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks is proposing to develop an expanded parking area near the Sharon Fishing Access Site. So the actual access site is a couple lots further to the, would that be to the west, southwest? Its purpose is to address public health and safety issues associated with the lack of parking capacity at the existing fishing access site. Again, the parking lot would be located within the MDT right-of-way, and there is proposed a small trail down to a side channel of the Clark Fork River. As public agencies, Missoula County and Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks are allowed to vary from the zoning regulations through a public hearing pursuant to, and I have the section listed in Montana State Law 76-2402. Through this process, it's basically taking public comment, but the commissioners are unable to approve, conditionally approve, or deny the proposal. And that section from state law is basically when public agencies are proposing to use public lands for a public purpose. That is where this process happens. We don't get very many of them for obvious reasons. So this is, and I know it's kind of not the best picture, is the best screenshot I could give, but this is kind of showing where the parking lot is proposing to be. This square that's kind of right here, if you can kind of see it, let me turn my laser pointer on. I think I can do this a little bit better. There we go. So this square right here is that if you go out there, that gas line that's crossing the river, that is this square right here. So that kind of helps in your mind put in where it's very far up that right of way, kind of almost to the point where it can't fit there anymore. But this is the proposed parking lot. This is the trail going down here to this side channel of the river. So there's a multitude of zoning deviations that are being requested. They kind of fit into 3 chapters. Chapter 2 is our specific zoning district bulk and dimensional requirements. The 2 that got triggered were the overall maximum lot coverage. So this is under our new zoning that went into effect in July 1st. So the maximum lot coverage now includes parking lot pavement, basically. So the parking lot does trigger that. They are exceeding that coverage in the residential zone, as well as vehicular access and maximum driveway widths. We have standards that say, I believe it's 20 feet. They're proposing 24-foot wide, which is normal road standards, but that's just one of the new triggers. Then you have Chapter 6, which are our site design standards. So that includes landscaping. This would require street trees to be placed along Highway 200 every 30 feet, as well as landscaping standards for not only within the parking lot itself, but as well as perimeter parking lot. And this site, and there's more responses from the Public Works Department and Fish, Wildlife and Parks, but there's no water out here. And so that's one of the issues, is requiring all this landscaping when there's not going to be any water facilities to supply that water for that. Bicycle parking, they are proposing some bicycle parking, but it may not be to the extent of what is required under the zoning regulation. So that's one that's on the list, but it actually may be met more than not met. And then finally, Chapter 7 is our environmental design standards. This is probably the biggest new section, I think, that we've had most of the zoning regulations for people. There are what are called the riparian resource protection area and the riparian resource buffer. And within those 2 areas, and I have a map I will show, there are certain things that are allowed within those areas and things that are prohibited within those areas. And quite a bit of the parking is actually prohibited within those areas, including fencing in the riparian resource protection area. And they are proposing some fencing as well to limit public and people, and providing, better access to the trail without having it disperse across the property. And then again, the footpath, there are provisions to allow the footpath within it, but there are some standards. So they are trying to work with that to make it comply, but there could be some areas where it may not meet the maximum width that's allowed. So this is the biggest one I wanted to point out is really those riparian buffers, and hopefully people can see them. But so there's two areas with the riparian resource protection regulations. You have the riparian resource protection area, which is a 50-foot setback from the mean high water, it's actually for the Clark Fork River, we use the channel migration zone mapping that was done. So we use the actual stream levels from 2018, 2019, but it's a 50-foot setback. And so that's where this line is here, this kind of yellowy orange one. And then on top of that, you have a buffer, which on the Clark Fork in this area was an additional, I can't remember off the top of my head. Hold on 1 second so I don't misspeak here. To the right section. It was an additional 125 feet. So off of that 50-foot, you would have an additional 125-foot buffer. So a total of 175 feet from the 2018-2019 stream channel. And so that's what that red line is showing. So as you can see, I mean, almost the entire parking lot is within that buffer. So we did advertise, since this is a public hearing, we advertised for public comment. We placed illegal in the paper. We notified adjacent landowners within 300 feet. I only had one letter that was returned undeliverable. So everything else hopefully got to the people it was supposed to. We did notify advisory agencies as well. We updated the Missoula County Voice page to have a separate section for just zoning comments versus the original design comment. So there's kind of two sections. So there was a specific zoning discussion comment. And there have been no comments that we've received from our office at this time. And that's pretty much what I have. I don't have a motion because I can't make a motion. I did see, I know Chet is in the room, Shane's online. I did see Randy Arnold from Fish, Wildlife and Parks on as well. Staff from WGM was on. So there are people here to answer questions if the board has any, or is just to open public comment.
Yeah, well, because we have people here, do we, let's begin with comment and then you can leave.
Good afternoon. My name is Bert Caldwell. I'm with the Bonner Council, have been for about 10 or 12 years now. And from day one, I've been discussing with your predecessors and with their predecessors about the parking issues on Tamarack Road and down Brickyard Hill near Sharon. It was dangerous, both of them. You guys got something done for us on Tamarack, and it is a much safer road to cruise down now going to Milltown State Park. Still got some parking along 200, but there's a wider place for them to park than there was on Tamarack. So thank you for that. The Sharon Park area is, I've been amazed for the 12 years I've been looking at it. I don't know of any real injuries there or any deaths, but the probability of it happening is exceptional. It's really high. People get out of their cars, they step out in the street, they don't look at cars. So anything that you can do, and I fully support the parking area here, anything you can do to get those cars off the side of the road near Sharon would be a great thing. And it would be a preventive measure for someone getting hurt or killed in the future. That's it. That's all I got.
Thanks, Bert.
Thank you, Bert.
And, oh, thanks for moving this up in the agenda so I can leave.
Okay.
Nothing personal.
Would anyone else like to speak to this? Yeah, okay.
My name is Darcy Steiger, and if you look at that map, zoom in on it, please. Where your red arrow is. where it says riparian buffer, that is my property, right where that writing is. I own the largest chunk of property along the highway there. I don't even know where to start with this thing. Okay, let me go back to, okay, I heard through the grapevine you approached the ex-policeman across from Sharon. He basically told you guys to get lost. Then I heard you approached Mike Nelson, our neighbor, and that property's been in his family for a long, long time. I heard he said no twice, and then somebody found out there was an old railroad easement there and took it by public domain or whatever you call it. So, and I mean, Dusty Deshawn, he grew up there, and they farm that over there. They put in alfalfa. Dusty stores his hay there. I looked at the impact statement, which I was the only one that got one, by the way. I was showing it to my neighbors, and they're like, "Where'd you get that?" I said, "Just popped up in our mailbox." And it was saying no impact to the community, noise-wise, no impact to the animals, the wildlife, et cetera, et cetera. I am a wildlife corridor. I've got, if, yeah. So if you, that's my husband. So if you see our property, there's two big fields. The animals come off of Jumbo, they go right down through our fields, they jump over the fence. I hear a lot of cars in the middle of the night. They go right over that property that you're talking about, putting the parking lot on, and that's how they get to the river. There's a couple bald eagles that hang out in the dead tree there next to, oh, what's his name? What? Yeah, Bunce's old place there, yeah. And I mean, we saw a bobcat. I've been here since 1978 when I went to the university. I've never seen, and I backpack, I've never seen a bobcat right across the street from me, you know. The Jacobsons that used to live next door in the Desha original house, because my living room faces Edgewood Drive, I don't see a lot of the wildlife. My neighbors call me and tell me when animals are walking through, there was a pair of mountain lions that went through, right through there. And they're not cutting through Bunce's, and they're not cutting through over by the Yellowstone pipeline. They're going right through there down to the river, and then they come back up and they go back up my property and back up to the hill. So when I wrote to the county with my input after the impact statement, I said, you know, nobody knocked on my door, and all the people on the highway are, of course, the most affected. Do I want tube and riffraff there? No. Do I tube? Constantly, constantly. On a very hot day, I will count the cars on the highway, and on one side, it can be over 50. So this parking lot that's been chopped down to, what, 63 or something like that, is not going to solve the problem. Everybody knows those cars are there. My God, it's so visible. And like the Bonner guy said, although he was all for it, but he doesn't live there, everybody slows down for the tubers, because all of us going through there are using that also. I just happen to be lucky and I can walk down to get on the river, or put up by where the dam was and get off the river there. I mean, it's only really highly used. Tamarack was a problem because that was a narrow little street. I get that. But now those cars are up on the highway, right around the corner. But there's no wildlife corridor going through there. But the noise, we don't typically lock our doors. We're going to be locking our doors. I hate to say the riffraff because I'm part of the tubing community, but do I want all those people over there? And then today you're saying, oh, well, we'd put trees down it. Okay, well, now you're blocking our view, if this does go in, to across the river and looking down the valley. You know, it was bad enough when Canyon River went in there, but I don't know, I'm just sick over this. And for this meeting, I was calling neighbors this morning. Most of them didn't even know about it. And the others are like 2 PM, I'm working, or I got a dentist appointment or whatever. So I got the impact statement, showed it to a few neighbors. Some I couldn't get a hold of because they've gone to cell phones. I don't have their new cell phone numbers. And the other people are like, we never even got anything in the mail. There's only 83 houses there. And the thing is, it doesn't affect just us on the highway. It's the people going down and trying to turn down our streets. You've got Sunnyside, where you've got one entrance into the parking lot, and then you've got us on Edgewood Drive, which is the other entrance into the parking lot. And that's where we're all turning to go in. And Sunnyside, that's half-acre little unit called Sunnyside Meadows. And they all share water, et cetera. And then there's properties like me on Well Water, et cetera, you know.
Darcy, I'm sorry. If you've written all this down in your comment letter?
Well, I commented when I got this.
Okay,
like,
and
two-
then
two- Well, I didn't
encourage-
write down all that because, I mean, I've been talking for a little bit. but I'm
Yes,
trying
and
to
that's
make
what we
you-
have to keep going. And so
I think I'm the only
I'm
one really.
kind of cutting you off, but
Yeah,
if,
you're definitely cutting me off.
but if you would send in a comment letter and encourage your neighbors and whoever else you're talking to send in their comments, that would be really helpful. But go ahead and wrap up and then we'll get to the
Okay,
next
well,
person.
so let me just clear up one thing. Did you guys take the land by eminent domain?
No, the land is public land. It's owned by Montana Department of Transportation. I'm sorry, Montana Department of Transportation has an easement on the land. We asked to use their
Like an
easement.
1890s railroad thing for the mill workers or something?
They have an easement on the land. I think it has to do with the right of way. If you hang on just a sec. Shane, are you out there?
But it was owned by the.
Yeah.
Nelson.
I
Yeah,
want to do
Josh,
this to get you an exact answer because you absolutely deserve that.
I do.
You do.
So-
Shane, would you mind speaking to the mechanics of an easement right in the right of way?
Yeah, so Josh, where the parking lot is, the actual parking lot itself is in MDT owned fee title right of way. The trail and the fence and things like that go down to the river, that is in an MDT owned easement.
Okay, then why did the Nelson family pay property taxes on it for decades?
So
He was going to
Nelsons
build a
still-
house. He promised his wife he was going to build a house there. Then he never did. So he figured one of his boys would do it.
Yeah, so the Nelsons, the property that the Nelsons own, not all of it is encumbered with an easement. And so not only are they paying property taxes on the property that has easement on it, they're also paying property taxes on the non-encumbered property as well.
Yeah. So essentially, I mean, because I have a huge easement because they moved the road over for Edgewood Drive when everything went in there. And so when we bought the property, we found out our property actually went to the middle of Edgewood Drive. And there's an easement there. Everybody's got easements, you know, but you're still paying property taxes on that. But yeah, the impact statement, I mean, I'm a former draftsman and it was so hard to read. I mean, like this, I would have been embarrassed as an engineering firm to put that out. And I know Jeremy really well from hockey. I was going to call him about that. It was embarrassing. It really was. The whole impact statement was just, it was a joke. I mean, there was stuff on there that we don't even have those kinds of raptors. And so I figured, oh, well, this is a national kind of cover every animal out there. But to keep saying none, no impact, no impact, no, you know, it's like, I don't think so. So anyway, I don't know where you want these comments to go.
BCC@missoulacounty.us. And
Right, but don't you usually have a specific little tag on that? to
Yep,
go to?
and then it'll go to its specific file. Thanks, Darcy. Sorry, Dave.
Yeah, just for clarification, Bailey, did I hear correctly? There will not be trees because,
That's
There's-
what she said.
yeah.
There's no water.
Yeah, so no worry about trees obscuring vision. There will not be trees. That was the request for a variance.
Yeah, that's one of the deviations is the
Right.
landscaping
Thanks.
standards. And I know there are some people on with their hands up.
Okay,
online
we'll,
too,
we'll,
if there's
we'll
not people.
do folks in the room first and then they don't have to be kept here.
Good afternoon. My name is Myra Schultz. I'm Linda Nelson's sister. And I'm a retired land use attorney.
I'm sorry, Myra. What we're gonna do, because there are people in here, we're gonna give folks 3 minutes, so,
Okay, I'll speed it up.
there we go. And then you, of course, you can leave your comments with Violet too.
Well, I just found out about this last weekend, and so I haven't drafted any comments, but I'm concerned about the notice letter that my sister got dated October 7th, 2022. And it doesn't tell who sent it. It's from the Department of Planning, Development, and Sustainability, but no person's name on it. And it says the Board of County Commissioners is unable to approve, conditionally approve, or deny the proposal. Maybe after I'm done, Bailey could explain why that's said. I had a lot of trouble with WGM's EA because it's internally inconsistent. And my sister and brother-in-law had repeatedly been told that the access to the river was going to go along the highway and then down to Sharon, not across their property. And when I was reviewing these things, I saw that document in this EA. And so today I came to my sister's house and I said, have you ever seen this before? Well, obviously she should have seen it before because she had the document, but she didn't understand that. She did not realize that they were going to put gravel paths across their property down to the river. They were never aware of that. And what's really disconcerting is on page 25 of the EA, comment number A, it says, trail construction will be along an existing roadway, not across some easement that the county apparently thinks it has, but along the existing roadway, which is Highway 20. So I think WGM has to go back to their EA and at least make it internally consistent. And maybe Bailey can tell us why the county commissioners are unable to approve, conditionally approve, or deny the proposal since we're having this public hearing. There's one more drawing that Bailey's probably aware of that has this little triangle that says approximate right-of-way boundary. And I have no idea what that is because it isn't on there. So I'll take it up to her. I won't take any more of your time. Apparently you have allowed people to submit further written comments. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Myra. And
Thanks. Shane, could you speak to this trail issue? I think that both trails exist. Just want to see if we can clarify this for Mrs. Schultz.
You mean inside the right of way, Josh?
Yeah, it sounds like a trail going along the road and a trail going down to the river.
Yeah, and both inside of the transportation easement, and we've reached out to MDT for concurrence on all the work we're doing inside their easements and fee title ownership, and they believe that they have the right to give us the authority to construct those facilities.
Did you catch all that? It sounds like there's a trail along the road and down to the river, and both trails are on MDT land.
within the.
Is that what, I just want to make sure I
Yeah, they don't exist. A question for you, why would the ex-sheriff have been approached for his property across from Sharon if you guys could have taken this the whole time? For nothing, instead of paying, maybe a couple million or something.
that was before our time, and I'm just going to take a guess because I wasn't
You're
part of
new?
it. 3 years. Yeah.
David's not new.
3 years for me.
Yeah, but we haven't known about this for 3 years.
All I'm saying is this proposal is pretty new, and what you're talking about is someone being approached across the street. Is that what you said?
Yes.
I wasn't part of that, so I can't speak to it. I'm just gonna, really, I wasn't. I could
I'm
show you
just
where I
saying
was.
This all sounded like that happened right before the Nelson property. That's what I'm talking about. Like, oh, we can't get that one, so where's another chunk of land to put this on?
I
And
can't
like I
speak
said, it's
to,
not going to solve the problem because you're still going to have an extra 50 cars sitting along the highway.
so I can't speak to asking the neighbors because I wasn't part of that. That happened before my time.
Okay.
My guess, and I'm just going to do my best to totally respect the question and guess that the folks who did make that ask were unaware that MDT had an easement on the other side of the road and were unaware that they could make use of
David,
that
can you
easement.
address that?
I'm not aware of approaching the landowner across from Sharon. And had I been a part of that, I think Josh is right. It's only been the past couple of years that we've explored this option at the location here where there is both fee title that could be used for the parking lot and also an easement. Yeah, we did not have a couple $1 million laying around to purchase some
Well,
other.
I wouldn't think so, but, you know, I've been just trying to get a simple bike path for the Bonner kids, and my kids are already in their 20s. So the West Riverside kids could get down to Sharon, just a simple bike path. Finally, one was put into Tamarack, but it wasn't continued. And then Highway 200's redone there across from Marshall Grade, and they didn't widen it. So you can't connect it. The kids can't even get to East Missoula safely. And we're talking about this stupid parking lot, which is going to affect all of us hugely, hugely. It's going to be traffic jams trying to, oh my God. It's a nightmare for us. If you live there, you would know.
Thanks, Darcy. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak to this? Okay, and I can't see who's online, so.
Yeah, first online participant with their hand up is Kendra Sorensen. Kendra, you can unmute and give your comment.
Thanks. Good afternoon. My name is Kendra Sorensen and I live at 4685 Highway 200, which my boyfriend and I bought from his grandpa Bunce Watkins. So it's the house just north of the Sharon fishing access, and it's immediately the house right next to the parking lot that's being constructed. And I'm speaking today to request that the county install proper fencing along the easement to the river and parking lot so people do not unknowingly trespass onto our property. We've had things stolen off of our property and have subsequently had to purchase expensive security systems and most recently put in a fence along the highway. I am assuming this project will only increase the amount of people who recreate in the area, which we really hope doesn't increase the amount of criminal activity. Thus, why we are requesting significant fencing and signs so people know where they can and cannot go. And most importantly, I'm speaking to advocate on behalf of reducing the speed limit to 35 miles per hour until Marshall Canyon. The current speed limit is 45 miles per hour from Brickyard Hill to my house right after Sharon, which turns into 55 miles per hour. The new 70-car parking lot, fishing access, and bus stops that are about to be built here will have 2 entrance and exit points without any turning lanes right where the speed limit increases to 55. The current speed limits create many traffic safety issues, which are even worse during summer congestion. The main safety issues include congestion at the Sharon fishing access, residential roads, driveways, and school bus stops. There are also many bicyclists and traffic turning on and off Highway 200 to access Marshall Mountain. There are also an endless amount of wildlife and pets that get hit in this area because of 55 miles per hour is too fast for this residential area. Now, not to mention when a 70-car parking lot is constructed. Lastly, residents in the area experience excessive loud noises created by vehicles accelerating and braking in the residential zone. Most of the traffic here is also traveling well above the posted 55 mile per hour speed limit, which adds the safety and quality of life issues for those living here. The project, I believe, is a step in the right direction to help with the congestion on Highway 200, but will not work without a speed limit reduction as well. Myself, neighbors, East Missoula community, and members of the public that recreate at and near Sharon are excited to have a safer space to recreate, but are seriously concerned about the safety hazards the current speed limit creates. We would really like to see the county extend the 35 mile per hour speed zone until Marshall Canyon for the safety of myself, neighbors, pets, and community members. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kendra. Go ahead.
Shane, can you speak to the fencing that's part of the design of the parking lot?
Yeah, and I'm going to also ask Stephen to correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but we do have fencing at least you know, on the boundaries of the parking lot to try to keep people off of the neighboring properties, and then try to guide them towards either the trail to the river or to the trail that will run along Highway 200 to the existing Sharon fishing access site. And I don't know, Stephen, if you want to add anything, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, thanks, Shane. I think you said that correctly. We do have the fencing down along the river frontage. Currently, we don't have fencing running up towards the highway and the trail that connects Sharon proper to the Sharon overflow parking. But that's something that Shane, you and I can look at in response to comments.
Just say one other thing.
I forgot that a couple neighbors brought up to me that couldn't be here today. They said, you know, even though we looked at the environmental impact statement packet that you got, it says here on the back, you know, proposal A, do not put in the parking lot. Proposal B, put in the parking lot. Like, and I'm like, you know, it sounds like a done deal, but it was proposed that way that it's not necessarily going in. And the other, but what some of the neighbors' concerns were like, well, if it does go in, how are they going to keep people from camping there overnight? Are they going to put gates? That wasn't in the statement. I think they're doing that. They are doing that up at the Milltown Park, where they close it off at like 8 at night, or, you know, if your car's still there, you're screwed, you know. So that's something to consider too. But we don't want it. I'm just saying, we don't want the parking lot.
Thanks, Darcy. And Shane, I'm sorry, did we cut you off? Did you-
No, no.
Okay,
Just wanted- I
Josh
just
has
wanted to
another
say
one.
thing to Kendra was the person who who spoke last. Dave and I were out on this very site yesterday talking with neighbors about the speed limit, and we totally hear you, and we're moved by what we saw, and are going to get with Shane soon and figure out what can be done.
Thank you.
Do you mind, Josh, if I kind of talk about that too?
Please do, please do.
So, and we've had multiple conversations about this too, as far as the speed limit. There was a speed study that was completed by MDT probably, I think, 3 years ago now. And, you know, that data is still pretty fresh. And what we had talked about is once or if this parking lot is in place, it potentially can change how traffic operates in that area to the extent that we would see a reduction in speeds. And so at that point, then we would request that study. And MDT would complete it and then make the recommendation, and then that would go to the Transportation Commission. I guess I just want to make everybody clear that this is a state highway. It's not a county road. The county commissioners, Public Works, we have no control over what that speed limit is. That's a decision that either the Transportation Commission makes or the legislature can change those speed limits. Now, the process for the Transportation Commission making that change, or at least MDT evaluating it, the commission does have to make that recommendation. So our role is simply as a county to make the request to MDT to do the study. But in conversations with MDT, they've basically stated that, look, the data is not going to change. You're not going to see a difference in recommendation at this point. So let's get the parking lot built first, then let's do the evaluation. And then we would potentially see enough of a change in that speed limit, or at least the speed that people are driving, to justify a different speed limit out there. Hopefully that makes sense.
Thanks.
Yeah, and thanks, Shane. If I might add one additional thing, following the site visit that Josh and I made out there yesterday, we contacted the sheriff's office. They're going to try to get some extra patrols out there to see if we can't get folks to comply with the existing speed limit. But just know we have a fairly limited number of deputies on duty at any given time. So it's not like we've got folks sitting on the bench waiting to be deployed. They'll be pulled from somewhere else to do this. We're also going to try to get the speed indicator trailer out there that will let folks know how fast they were actually going. And we've seen that have some positive results elsewhere, where folks who are otherwise speeding get the hint that they're going too fast and will slow down. So be on the lookout for that.
Thanks. And it looks like we have someone here in Sophie Moise who'd like to speak before we go back to online.
Okay, my name is Linda Nelson. We own the property from the parking lot to the river. It's not under, I don't have no idea about any existing path to the river on our property. If there is an existing path to the river on our property, what is our liability as a property owner for that pathway? You're proposed to erect a fence around the parking area. Will you put up no trespassing signs beyond that point? Or if you have this pathway, as you say you do, I don't believe you do. How about the toilets? You know, right in front of our property, we're gonna have these toilets proposed on one of the proposals that I have. I want to know, does the highway right-of-way vary? The amount of highway right-of-way, does it vary on our property going to the next property, which is Watkins? Is that a different highway right-of-way to the next property? Is that a different highway right-of-way? Width I'm talking about. And then we have Sharon. So I don't know. I just can't see in that space there how you're going to get that many cars and parking lot and paved and a fence and toilets in there. So let's see, what else do I have here? Okay. And I don't know if you have anything to do with the bus stop, but would the bus stop be along there or would it be back at Sharon? These are my questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Okay, we'll go back to,
Yeah, Kyle Watkins also has his hand up if he wants to unmute.
Hello, you
and
guys able
Linda,
to hear me all
did you,
right?
I'm sorry, Kyle, you've signed in so we can contact you to answer your questions? Yes. Okay, great. Sorry. Go ahead, Kyle.
Good. You guys can hear me all right?
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, hello, everybody. I am Kyle Watkins. I am Bunce Watkins' grandson. My girlfriend Kendra and I had purchased the property from Bunce after he passed away about a year and a half ago. Fortunately, I've been blessed to grow up at such a beautiful location out here in East Missoula and love the property dearly to myself. I do want to say thank you to Darcy and to our fellow neighbors for bringing up some of these very, very great concerns that we all have with the proposed parking lot. I will echo some of the response that my girlfriend put out saying that we do think if the property, the subject property parking lot does go through, it would help alleviate some of the congestion that we all experience with this parking lot during the summer months. I will say I don't think it's going to solve all of our issues. I have a lot of frustration with the current state of affairs out in that area with parking. I mean, there's some instances where it is extremely dangerous for us to pull out of our driveway due to the amount of vehicles that are parking alongside the highway. I mean, I got to get my 3/4 ton pickup truck halfway into the oncoming lane for me to just be able to see if it's safe to pull out of my driveway. I mean, I would request that you guys got to put a no parking buffer zone, you know, plus or minus 10 or 15 feet from each driveway pulling onto Highway 200, just so we can navigate getting on the highway in a safe and efficient manner. Pulling a trailer, trying to pull out of my driveway with all those cars just creates a significant hassle. And to be honest, is very unsafe for us to be trying to pull out of our driveway. Just kind of feeling and listening into the conference call, I do feel that our fellow neighbors, to an extent, were left in the dark with what was going on with this property. I feel for the Nelson family and their frustrations and the questions that Miss Linda, or excuse me if I got your name wrong, but she brought up some very valid concerns with liability and issues with, this proposed trail that I will say does not exist through Mike Nelson's property to the river. And I'm very concerned with the amount of trespassing on my property and Mr. Nelson and Mrs. Nelson's property that has occurred, to date right now. I mean, I can look out of my door any time of the moment between June and August, and there will be anywhere from half a dozen to a dozen people sitting significantly into my property boundary, blowing up their inner tubes, littering trash. I've had over $1,000 worth of theft of personal items on my property from people parking alongside the highway. That's, you make a police report, but whatever happens after that. So here I am spending thousands of dollars installing a fence, 320 feet to be exact, along Highway 200 to mitigate people from trespassing on my property. Will it help? I sure hope so. And I'm here to request that you guys need to do your due diligence in making sure our public knows the property boundaries if this parking lot is to be established, And they know they cannot trespass on Mr. Nelson's land, my land, and they got to abide by the rules and regulations set forth for this parking lot. It is very concerning seeing that due to the property boundaries and the way that my land and Mr. Nelson's land is constructed, it's not a rectangle, they're oblong, it's a triangle. It's very bizarre the way that the property boundaries are done. However, you guys need to make a very good effort to fence off that area, to reduce the amount of trespass, reduce the amount of theft that happens on my property, and to keep people off from basically, invading our privacy and stealing some of our valuables that have been set out in our property. I also would, let's see here. Nope, I think I handled all of the comments that I had for this, actually.
Thanks, Kyle. And I think Josh has a question.
I just want to say first, thanks, Kyle, and everything you're saying, we totally concur with. We feel for you that you as a neighbor right nearby this space have had to endure the impact of all that recreation right in your front yard. That is a bummer and not really fair. And want to say that the impetus for creating this is an attempt to alleviate that problem. That's what this is about. This is our best effort to get cars off of the highway so it isn't dangerous, and to contain people so they're not trespassing, and make it so there is a place for them to put their garbage. And I personally hope that this is the next step. This is the first step towards no parking resolution on that road. That's way down the road process wise, but that's really my personal goal. So I just want to be clear in saying I hear you, agree with you, and that this is an effort to make those problems better.
Yeah, and I got one more thing I'd like to add in here I believe is the environmental study that you guys had done on the subject piece of property for this parking lot. I mean, and I'll kind of echo what Darcy had brought in about that wildlife corridor from Mount Jumbo down to the river. And I will contest that there is a significant amount of wildlife that does go through that corridor to access the river. I mean, I've seen black bear, deer, mountain lion, coyote, and also nesting geese over on Mike Nelson's property. And I would assume you guys did your due diligence to analyze the impacts of the environmental impacts, about those animals that use that piece of property. And I hope that the benefits of this property do outweigh the cons of what potential negative implications may arise for wildlife that does find that field home.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thanks.
And Violet is off. Is there anyone else? I don't see a hand, but come on up.
Thank you. My name is Sue Holden, and I'm the new chair of the East Missoula Community Council. I'm confused, as was my understanding that this project had already been approved. There was an article on the NBC Montana website with all the excitement of it coming in and how it was going to alleviate a bunch of problems, and it was all great. And then there was an article about how that was being put off because of the cost of construction and whatnot. So is this a totally new design, or is there just changes due to the new zoning laws? Or that's my confusion on that. But one of my big concerns out in East Missoula is, it was mentioned earlier about the camping that may occur in the new parking lot. Right now on the east side of the Ole's parking lot looks like a new temporary shelter. The number of RVs and campers and whatnot that's gone up there, I don't know if you noticed it when you came through yesterday or not, but it's become concerning to the neighbors right there on Michigan. I believe the health department has been out there because people were defecating outside of their trailers, and there's no power supply, no water, no nothing. And there's upwards of 15 RVs and they're all in that little area. Who's to say that they're not going to move down to that new parking lot? And a concern of mine would be, who's going to prevent that from happening? And then who's going to enforce all of that? I think it's a great idea, but I think given the new design and the changes that are being proposed, more thought needs to be put into it. And I echo everybody's thoughts here that, you know, there's still a lot of liability issues at hand. And the homeowners that live right there, their input to me should be very, very valued because it's them that's going to have to live with the impact of what's going on down there. So thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Sue. Come on up, Darcy.
I always understand good intentions for, you know, doing things. But you also have to weigh, I get it that you want to alleviate the problem. Sure. Are we all just always going, oh my God, all these cars again? You know, which is due to a lot of reasons why people aren't going up the Blackfoot anymore. But sometimes they even come down Edgewood Drive. Pretty rare. And if somebody does park there, they usually knock on our door. Do you mind if we park on your boulevard there? You know, but a lot of times with best intentions to alleviate one problem, you're creating a whole host of new problems. And that's what I see, because you're not going to get all those cars off the road. Even if you put a no parking zone, well, then that leaves people out that are trying to get to the river. We have this problem with, you know, the Bitterroot all over town. We've got this problem. We've got too many people here is probably the problem. But so you're trying to fix the problem. You're creating a whole new set of problems. I mean, a whole new set. So, you know, and yeah, I realize it's a state road, and where it turns to 55 is right across from my property, which made no sense. The state did that because that's where all the animals come through. So, you know.
Thank you. Myra.
Just have one more concern. You were just talking to Watkins, and you said that this parking lot was going to relieve their concerns about people on their property. What does that do to the value of our property if you put a parking lot with toilets right in our front yard? How does that affect the appraisal or the value of our property? That's my question.
Thank you. And we'll get back to you. I can't see. Okay. Did you have something? Sorry, go ahead. Kendra.
Yeah, I just wanted to include, I can't remember who was mentioning that when MDT did a speed study about 3 years ago. But I think that I would disagree with you saying that it's really fresh and new because it was done 3 years ago. And I think that you're failing to include the rise in the population that we've had since COVID-19 pandemic hit our city and our great state and everything. And I mean, we have seen the amount of recreators double in the last year. So I think that it really is needed to update that study and get that done. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Kendra, that wasn't us saying that, oh, that data is fine. I think what we were doing there was a bit of projecting onto what MDT's response is going to be. I totally agree. Things have really changed, especially recreation-wise, since the pandemic. Every trailhead, every river access site is more crowded than it was. What we can do is make a recommendation to MDT. This is an attempt to backpedal or say we're not going to do anything, but just to kind of plant the seed of realism. This isn't our road to determine the speed limit on. We can push on MDT and we can make recommendations. And our best guess is the first thing they'll say is, well, we just did a speed study there. Now, that doesn't mean we won't make recommendations. It doesn't mean we won't make asks. Doesn't mean we won't get sheriff's deputies out there or put up one of those data blinking trailers. We will push on all those things. But just to be realistic, it's not our road. We'll do everything we can, but it's not our road.
Thank you for that. And I can appreciate that. I understand that it's not your road, but you know, you're here to provide a voice for our community. And so that's really what we're doing, is to just ask you to provide that recommendation.
We
So
are
thank
going to
you.
provide hard.
And Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, we will absolutely provide that. The other consideration to think about, which we've seen across this county, and it's not unique to Missoula County, is that simply slapping up different speed limit signs is not necessarily going to lower the speed of vehicles. Folks tend to drive what they feel comfortable driving. There will be folks who actually are enough of law-abiding citizens that they might take it upon themselves to actually comply with the speed limit. But in other cases, folks are going to continue to drive in excess of the speed limit. If it feels like a rifle bullet straight road, they're going to go fast unless there's enforcement or something else provided that will help them slow down. And it's those options that we're going to be looking at as we move forward.
Thanks. Okay, we have 4 more hearings. How are we feeling about this? Any more comments on Sharon? And again, you can submit comments also in email or writing or a phone call. Yes, it's B, like the letter B, board, bcc@missoulacounty.us.
Juanita, really quickly, Emmy also asked me to mention that there is a page for this, for
Oh,
the
of course.
Huron on MissoulaCountyVoice.com. You can access it from the homepage. There's a tile for this issue. You can provide comment and there's more information there as well.
I'm so sorry. Yes, Missoula County Voice. That makes way more sense than an email address.
Vinny, could you take that, please?
So the answer to that is probably generally no.
Actually, Vinny, can you turn your microphone on?
Oh, did I turn it
Or get
Doesn't
closer
sound-
to
doesn't
it?
Sound mic'd up, so.
Sorry, usually I'm too loud for these things. There's not a specific time frame, but this is we're at a kind of an weird procedural moment where the point of this really is to take in the public comment to help inform what the agency and the fee simple landowner is doing with it. So the idea is that they should be responsive to you. The other thing is you can always reach out directly to the folks, staff folks, to try to get specific answers.
You'll need to get on in the microphone if you're going to want to be talking.
I know.
Chris.
Yeah.
Well, we needed you on the recording.
But here, let's,
You go ahead.
yeah, go ahead, Hap.
And Bailey, would you mind describing once again our outreach attempt?
Well, so I think there's a couple different things. Obviously, the EA was not done. So what we're looking at right now is the zoning deviations. The EA is done by Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. That's not something that so it was not sent by the CAP staff. You're kind of mixing multiple agencies. And I guess that's just one clarification that I would make.
So who sent that to me?
Well, so my guess is probably Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. It was not sent by by
Community
planning, by planning development. So what notice that I sent out was to the within 300 feet of the boundary to the parcel owners about this meeting. That is the public hearing notice. So I just wanted
Yeah,
to
but 300 feet, really?
that's what's required under state law is 300 feet buffer. That's
But
what we do for whether it's subdivision.
Your conscience was good with that?
That's
the law.
what's required under state law. We're not allowed. I mean, that's the 300 feet buffer is what's under MCA.
And that's all you're allowed to do, is what you're telling me? In
Sorry,
good
Darcy,
faith,
do
you
you-
can't tell the rest of the community? Okay, so I'll go around.
So
I'll start
Darcy,
knocking
where
on
would
doors.
you like us to draw the line?
It's only a neighborhood of 83 houses. My God, it's pretty simple, you know? And they're all impacted by this because everybody has to turn down one of those 3 streets. There's only 3 streets there. And everybody has to go down those to get around in that neighborhood. And, and when I did write like I was supposed to and sent it to you guys, I don't even know if it's being read. I was mentioning the wildlife or, corridor. I don't know. Nobody called me. I said, nobody called me and asked me about this, new impact statement. I wrote a whole bunch of stuff. And I never, and somebody said, I think by law they have to get back to you. And I said, well, maybe in other states, but I don't know about that here. But it just feels, and then you say, well, there's public notices in the paper. I know that's the way things are done. People aren't getting the paper anymore. I'm like one of the few people that is still getting the paper. So I'm seeing a lot of stuff you're not seeing like on the nightly local news, but just maybe that needs to be changed on a county level, that these public notices in the paper is not what it used to be in this country, the whole country. And there needs to be another way of getting it out somehow. So.
Thanks, Darcy. Okay. Hap or Sue? And then like, just a reminder, we have 4 more hearings.
I promise I'll keep it short.
Okay.
Number one, there's a heck of a problem out there on the traffic. As we all know, I've lived out in that area from 1949 on. I drive it every day, and so it's a tremendous problem. And I thank the two of you for going out there yesterday and viewing it. And I say this in all truthfulness, next summer, when it's 90 degrees plus, and it's a Friday afternoon, drive out there and see what it is in. It is unbelievable.
Yeah.
You know. So anyway, that's situation number 2. I thank you very much for trying to clean up a difficult problem, and you got a difficult
I'm
one.
glad you
here.
recognize that.
Why do I
I
recognize?
said, I'm glad you
Oh,
recognize that. It's a rare thing and I appreciate it.
Very good, very good. Anyway, I thank you for jumping into it. It's not going to be a fun one, as you can see, and your 3-minute rule kind of got overruled. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. Sue?
Thank you. Just real quickly, another concern that's been brought to my attention is how is this going to work in connection with the Highway 200 corridor project? Has there been any thought put into realizing the corridor project is years down the road? Is the, the Shaw Run situation going to be taken in accordance with the Highway 200 corridor plan? And now with all the changes at Marshall Mountain, again, there's the traffic issue, and I'm with them as far as that 3-year study has absolutely no bearing on the impact of the transportation that's going through there daily. And with the Marshall Mountain being reopened for their new recreation and the parking lot proposed to be rather close to that, you know, what's going to be done to mitigate, other than the speed limit changes, what's going to be done to mitigate the congestion that's going to result from there as well. And I do appreciate everything you guys are doing, because this is long overdue and the need for that area. And thankfully, no one has been killed, although people have been hurt. And when it's hot and they have a river access right there, people just, they just all come down there. And sometimes I don't even like to drive down there because the risk is so high during that heavy time period. So I do appreciate you and what you're doing on this.
Thank you.
So you mentioned the Highway 200 corridor plan. Built into that plan was additional parking to deal with Sharon, because of the issues you're talking about have been so widely recognized as really important for safety for pedestrians, recreators, drivers. This is not a new thing. We didn't just wake up today and be like, oh, there's a problem out there. This whole thing is because of that problem. Widely recognized by engineers who helped design that Highway 200 plan. So this is part of the plan. It's happening first, but this is built into the plan. And I totally hear you on all those traffic issues. That's why we were out there yesterday. 5 school bus stops. Marshall Canyons are going to become a big park. And hopefully people are off the road onto this parking lot, but that means access issues. All those have to be dealt with. This isn't a question of, wow, we didn't even know about that. These things all have to be dealt with. I totally agree.
Thank you for clarifying that. I hope I didn't imply that it's a
Little.
new issue. I'm sorry if I did. It's just that the Highway 200 corridor plan, everybody's anxiously waiting that to happen. And of course, the funding is the big issue right now. That plan took many years and a lot of hours to come to fruition, and everybody's looking forward to it. then the Shaw Run access issues came up. And so for some of us, it just seemed that it was two separate things and they were trying to fix, put the square peg in the round hole kind of thing. But we do understand that it's all going to flow well. But with the change in what's going on at Marshall Mountain, excuse me, the proposed changes for Shaw Run, it is a concern out there. So I'm sorry if I came across as implying that you didn't take that into consideration, because I know you did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any more on Sharon? Missoula County Voice. Send us comments, tell your friends. Okay, Shannon Terrio, Health Department. I'm sorry, Health Code and related fees by reference.
Thank you. So I'm going to do a rare thing and I'm going to do 2 hearings without a PowerPoint. Haha. Haha. Okay, you have heard this a number of times. I'm going to say it because it's a public hearing, really short, and then we'll, but I'll try to keep it shorter than usual. So in 2021, the legislature made some changes and to Public Health Authority. And now the health regulations need to be adopted by the local governing body. You've already done that twice. You did it in yep.
Bailey, thank you. That was a hard one, and just saying thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, initially you adopted it in 2021, first by emergency ordinance and then by regular ordinance, and then again in 2022 to adopt some new fees. Now we have a new interlocal agreement between the city and county that has changed who the local governing body is. So the local governing body is both the county commissioners and the city council. Because we knew that that was coming, it was an expiration date in the county commissioner adopted health code. And so we're here doing it again, and it will also be going to city council so that it's adopted by both bodies. So it is adopted by the local governing body. I will make the point that we're asking you to adopt the existing health code. The last time the health code was changed was in 2018. It, besides the fees, which was in 2022, it has, an administrative section and 8 regulations. The regulations are wastewater treatment and disposal, large group function permits, solid waste management, food service establishments. 5 is drop-in daycares, rabies, and trailer courts, and campgrounds. I feel like I'm leaving one out.
What's the
Water
name of the
wells.
special?
What's the special?
It was sort of like a server reciting all this stuff, and then
Yeah, yeah, right. What's the
it
special?
was an impressive act.
The
of
whole
memory.
thing is pretty special, right? No, I know what you're saying. So the state law allows you to adopt something by reference, which means you just make a statement saying you're adopting the whole code. There is an exception. You can't adopt any part of administrative penalties by reference. And so this is a pretty common way that codes are adopted. You'll think about the International Building Code or the Uniform Plumbing Code. Instead of rewriting all of that into an ordinance and then again into a city ordinance and municipal code, there's a statement that says we adopt this. And so that brings it into being as an enforceable county ordinance and an enforceable, in this case, municipal code. So you previously did first reading and initial adoption. It has all been posted, it's been noticed, and so we're asking you to do the second reading and final adoption of the existing health code and associated health code fees. And then I'll be back next year to do the same thing.
Do we have the reference language is right there? Want to do it?
Do we have comment? Public
Yeah,
comment?
sir. Sorry, there you go.
I think
Is there anyone online?
I scared everyone away.
So is the motion simply to adopt the existing health code and related fees by reference?
Yes.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Oh, boy. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thanks so much for doing this 3 times. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you, Shannon.
Yes, well, thank you for doing it 3 times. We appreciate it.
Okay, Travis Ross.
Wait a minute.
Oh, nope, this is the second one.
Yeah.
Sorry. I thought,
I am disappointed that Travis didn't clap when the health code was readopted. I was hoping for that, but
oh, sorry.
you were right, Dave. So, all right. So we have been talking about the need to expand the animal control shelter for a number of years. This project is essential for
How can
the
I forget
animals.
this? I can't put, yes.
Okay, you ready? Have we
Yeah.
changed the, okay. So the project really is essential for the animals to reduce stress, to keep them well. We need expanded and better kennels. We need a better flow. We've really been having trouble with cats getting sick because they are in cages that are too small. And once we have upper respiratory break in the shelter, it is really hard. And then we have to keep the cats. We can't, take them in for surgery and then allow for adoption. So we're keeping animals longer. It's getting more stress to them. We also don't have a good space for puppies to be able to clean the kennels appropriately to prevent parvo, which is a deadly disease for puppies. We have no space for things that we get, like gerbils and snakes and geckos and ferrets and rabbits. We get all of these things and they are put on the table where people also are expected to eat lunch or have a meeting, or they're put on the floor, they're put on all kinds of counter space. And so we definitely need an additional space for the animals. We also need a better flow for the public who's accessing our services. Right now, when you walk in, there might be dogs and cats that are, being adopted, and it's all happening right there. It's just very close, and so there's the potential for safety issues. There's no space for somebody who is in the unfortunate position of giving up their animal to have a private goodbye to their animal, for their animal or with their animal. We need a better intake flow for us to be able to vaccinate and assess the health of an animal upon intake without walking the cats by the dogs and the dogs by the cats. So there's a lot of very good stuff that we intend to do with this project. So where we are with the project is we have some initial drawings. Those were completed in 2020 during the pandemic, and now we are ready to start with working towards the construction drawings. And one of the things that the county has found, we're working very closely with Ethan Redfern and with Jason Hauser, who I just have to tell you are amazing people and so supportive. And I can't imagine doing this without the help of the two of them. But they have a lot of experience doing big projects like this, and bringing on a construction manager, a general contractor construction manager at this point in the process. So not after your plans are all finalized, but during this plan creation time. And they have found that it really reduces overall cost, it reduces disruption during construction to the animals and for the public, and it really shortens time of construction. And so in order to do that, state law allows us to do that, but we have to have a resolution from the commissioners in order to do it. And the resolution is in front of you today. It's a resolution for an alternative contract delivery system. Got to look up exactly maybe what it's called. Alternative project delivery system. And so we are asking for you to approve this resolution, and then we will move on with hopefully with procuring a general contractor through the RFP process.
Great. So searching for proper motion language here.
Up
there. All right, I would move the board adopt a resolution approving the use of an alternative project delivery contract for the Missoula City County Animal Control Shelter expansion and renovation.
Second.
this has been like a critical crisis since 2019 or earlier. So I'm frustrated, but also glad that we're finally moving in the right direction.
Someday we'll cut a ribbon.
Sorry. Yes, sorry, any public comment? Someone didn't eat lunch today. Any public comment? Okay. All not seeing any? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you, Chancellor Ross.
No, all right. Health Department gets applause. Okay, Travis. Oh, and Juniper. Sorry. Okay.
Juniper, while you're here, has anything new happened about?
Thanks,
Rose
Shannon.
Crest? Are we going to talk about that later? Not today, but
Like,
David, I don't get an update.
you don't get an update.
I,
We're not gonna
we
tell
didn't
you.
have enough popsicles to go around. I guess that's.
Or we can.
We can talk about another time. We'll great. We'll
Have you been
stick
able
to resolution of
in
intent,
touch with neighbors?
pathways and trails master plan. Oh, no worries. Sorry. I need a snack.
It's the fresh air. Having a hard time not losing shit there.
Good. Good. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
didn't
I
know
thought you
guys
guys
know
were.
each other.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to kick things off. Good afternoon, commissioners. For the record, I am Juniper Davis, the manager of Missoula County Parks, Trails, and Open Lands Division. And I'm really, truly excited to be here today to have you consider adoption of the Missoula County Pathways and Trails Master Plan. It's been a long time in the making. We have done a large amount of public outreach, public meetings, and it's pretty important moment for us to be here with you all today and the public hopefully listening to talk to you about this final plan and then get your approval so that we can move forward with this vision that we're creating. So this plan really is the first of its kind. Missoula County has not undertaken a Pathways and Trails Master Plan before, and not only is it new to Missoula County, it's pretty unique even statewide that we've undertaken this effort, and we're pretty proud of the work that we've done. This is a visionary plan. It was created to inform how the shared use paths in Missoula County should look well into the future. The trails that are identified in this plan didn't come from county staff. Rather, this came from extensive public outreach, particularly in rural areas, which we had a real strong missing voice in Missoula County up until this point. This plan really paints a picture of what the public and agency and nonprofit stakeholders see as priority trails in our community. This plan is also an important tool for the county and our partners. With this plan, we and our agency and community partners can advocate for the inclusion of these trails in state and federal transportation projects, in good community planning and development efforts, and also hopefully for future funding efforts that come external to the county. Okay, great. So the vision of this plan has been set from the beginning, and with the goal of helping us understand and convey these shared use trail needs across the county, focusing on those areas that lie outside the urban core. And that's an important part that we like to emphasize. There's been a lot of good planning done within the city and the tight-in urban center, but not outside of that area. And again, this plan has been the first effort to try to identify what those needs are outside of the city. One thing I want to highlight for you all, and this is an important point, which is that this is not a capital improvement plan. This does not state explicitly what trails will be planned or in what order, nor does it obligate the county to construct these
these paths or obligate any funding or indicate that there will be any taxpayer increase as a result of this. Really, again, this is a visionary plan that helps us establish priorities in the future will help the county and our partners advocate for good funding, good transportation projects, and hopefully bringing in some of that external funding that's available. And finally, I just want to note that this plan also doesn't identify recreational trails, those kinds that you might picture being kind of dirt paths in natural areas. We're really looking at shared use paths, much like you see in this photo here. Those that might be, offset from the roadway with a buffer. And at times also some more like sidewalk featured trails as well. So that's kind of an overview of the plan. And with that, I want to pass it over to Travis, who then is going to dive in with a little bit more detail in what the plan entails.
Thanks. So starting out with the goals of the plan, there are 5 of them above, and those were developed early on in the process with stakeholder engagement, MPO and MDT and trail organizations and lots of folks, Public Works. And really those 5 goals are to improve pedestrian bicyclist safety, improve access to specific destinations, create connectivity and bolster resiliency. So there is actually some provisions for like providing escape routes and that kind of thing in natural disasters, wildfires. Actively engage and use residents' feedback and to consider the fiscal and environmental impacts of specific projects. So starting off with public engagement portion, we had 2 rounds of stakeholders meetings and 3 rounds of community workshops. The public engagement, one of the tools that we used was an online story map. So folks could click around, identify projects that they thought were priorities, recognize and like those that other folks submitted, provide comment, that kind of thing. One of the things that we're really proud of is as Juniper mentioned, we really worked hard to get voices from our rural communities and make sure that those were proportional. So if you look at this chart, the green represents the relative proportion or percentage of Missoula County residents in these specific communities. And then this is a snapshot of Survey 2, the relative percentage of survey respondents. So in almost all cases, we had close to or more than the representation or than the county population percentage. I lost the mouse.
Yeah,
there we go. So did I skip one here? Okay, here we go. So through mapping out the existing system, compiling the collected public feedback on priorities, we were able to identify the gaps in our regional system and as well as the local gaps in local trail systems. We took the key destinations that folks were interested in getting to, barriers like highways, rivers, interstate, and took all of that information to do an analysis of where trails should be and looking at travel patterns. And so this analysis really was the foundation to our understanding of the system and possible projects that might fill in some of those gaps. So basically, if you look at it as layers, we get to this proposed system by doing the public and stakeholder engagement work and compiling the data and overlaying that with those 5 plan goals that we talked about earlier. So each of the trails, or go back, each of the trails are broken up into types. So there are recreational connector trails that are connecting you to trailheads or river access points. There are regional trails that are providing north, south, east, west connections through the county. And then there are the local enhancement trails that are more neighborhood centric. So then those trails are further broken down into tiers 1, 2, and 3. The first tier are those projects that have some level of maybe a partner that's engaged in it and some funding. The second is not quite there. It's visionary. We see its importance. And then the third is kind of a more aspirational in nature. If funding were available, could bump it up in priority, but that's kind of how they shake out. So starting with the regional connections, you can see that here. We're going kind of along the interstate corridor and then north through Sealy and Condon. The solid black are those trails that are already constructed. The dotted lines are the proposed trail projects. And feel free to interrupt me if you get any questions along the way.
Oh, go ahead.
Refresh my memory. What's the difference between a trail and a pathway?
Oh, good. I've asked myself the same question. They are interchangeable, but as Juniper mentioned, what we're talking about are shared use paths or trails, whatever you want to call them. They are paved, generally separated from the road. But yeah, it is kind of confusing terminology, and I really think they are interchangeable terms. You hear them both.
We should use shared use pathway so people understand that some pavement is involved. Because if we just say trail and path.
Yeah. Sounds like shared use path. Someone is using this as a transportation means. They could just be going for a walk, obviously, as opposed to a trail where you go to the trailhead and it's entirely recreational. You're not trying to get from point A to
And that you're potentially going to use it to escape wildfire.
Yeah.
Like this is.
Right.
Yeah, and I would just add really quickly that from the very beginning, we were trying to have our sideboards be that on one hand, we weren't doing like a single trail dirt path, but nor on the other end were we actually trying to make a real active transportation plan that went to a fine level of granular detail down to like very specific sidewalks that might be recommended. We were really looking for a middle ground, which were these regional connections or these community connections that would be best served through these shared use paths that would allow for both pedestrian and bike use. So while typically paved, there may be some opportunities where we could use some sort of compacted gravel surface, but still designed to a standard that would allow for pedestrian and bike passage, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
So, so here's an example within these regional, in each trail type, we have a highlight trail project that's kind of illustrative of what that would look like and where it is, and the analysis of those, again, those five goals, which are on the right, and then listed on the left as well. Sometimes have trouble with the key that's on each slide. So for example, in this regional connector, this would be the People's Way Trail, which provides connection from the Y to the Flathead Indian Reservation. That trail, interestingly enough, it continues all the way down to the Bitterroot Valley to in honor of the forced relocation of tribal members and over 100 years ago. So we are also talking about recreation. Oh,
Can
yeah.
you go back to the last slide? Okay, so that's the existing route, and then the trail.
Oh, so there is no trail there.
There is no trail. This is one of the proposed project trails.
Yeah, after running up that hill 1,000 times and thought, man, too bad there's not a trail. So I got sidetracked being like, is there a trail? I never
No,
noticed.
there is not a trail. That is one that we heard a fair amount of public support for this project.
Yeah.
So that's one of the spotlight trails that has a specific section in the plan, but no, there is nothing there right now.
Sorry.
No, not
I
at all.
apologize. I just need to-
Yeah. So recreational trail connections, those again are providing connections to trailheads or river access points primarily. And we have some examples of those as well. This highlight project is the Amphitheater School and River Access Trail proposal in the Bonner area. So there's within each highlight project, there's a description of it. This particular trail could be met, or this trail need could be met in a number of ways, and that may be a widened sidewalk. It could be a separated trail, and the location too is illustrative here. It could be along the riverside, but the point of the access would be to get folks to the school and the amphitheater and connect West Riverside community. So within the safety evaluation, that's something that has come up. We've had a few questions on that. That's the first little kind of person walking. That is based on MDT data, primarily from crash data. It's also based on roadway speeds over 45 miles per hour. So that's not really something that was kind of negotiable. It was a set criteria of for safety. Of course, public feedback that was based on the number of comments we got and the number of likes on specific projects and that sort of thing. But safety, we did get questions on, because there are those projects that inherently we know would make safety improvements, though they did not have the data in all instances to support a different, I guess, scoring on that project. Local enhancement trails are the third category. See a lot of those that were proposed in the target range neighborhood in particular. This is an example. This one is Clinton. This also could be considered a regional connection as well, but there are no sidewalks in Clinton and no trail along the school, et cetera. So this would really provide a benefit for that community to have a shared use path. Into the implementation section, needless to say, there are a lot of great projects that came to light during this process. But by design, this is a visionary document, and its primary goal is to convey the community's interest and desires for specific shared use path projects. The plan doesn't have a specific timeline or horizon. Juniper mentioned it's not a capital improvement plan. And while I'll keep on losing my mouse here. Yeah. Do not intend to necessarily build all of these trails. We can use this tool to help advocate for the construction of them as opportunities come available, or if within an individual community or trail group, they want to go after funding on these. This slide helps illustrate how many miles of trail could be implemented in the future based on the prioritization. You can see that the construction of Tier 1 prioritized trails would lead to 100 additional miles of trail. We have 41 currently in the system. Within the implementation section of the plan, there are also some approximations of construction costs so that we can know what specific projects are. So each project did go through an analysis of, is this rural, paved, unconstrained, Those would be ones without significant right-of-way issues or geotechnical issues. And you can see that's quite a bit lower than a constrained one that does have significant, is near a slope or near a wetland or a stream. Those urban paved trails have a different level of construction. You're talking about curb changes and right-of-way acquisition or reconfiguration. And then buffered shoulder, which are not many projects. There were a couple, I believe, in the target range area. Within that implementation section of the plan is an analysis of the maintenance spending that can be anticipated. WGM Group, and I should mention WGM Group and Design Workshop were the firms that that were brought on to guide this process and develop this plan. So WGM Group worked on this specific aspect of it, but calculating what can be expected at with our system in terms of maintenance. So currently with assistance from Public Works and existing budgeted dollars, we're looking at $50,000 plus whatever grants we can get for maintenance on those. Those could be anywhere from nothing or to $100,000 a year to do like pavement preservation and overlays and seals, that kind of thing. The needed budget, maintenance budget, considers the regular occurrence of those tasks and what would be needed to use a trusted maintenance regimen to get those completed on a schedule. And that's based again per mile, just like the construction cost. Okay, Juniper's gonna wrap us up here.
Yeah, so I'll just wrap us up. Again, we're really excited to be bringing this to the finish line, and we're really excited to see where this visionary plan will take us in the future. And in fact, we've already started to see some of the successes. They're small at this point, but again, using this as a tool, as we've described a few times in this presentation today, we've already seen that. We've been able to point to the plan, and it helps bolster our arguments for continued advocacy to see these types of facilities put in Missoula County. And it's with that advocacy, I think, that we'll be able to see some of these be implemented by partners or bringing external funding to make sure that we can see some of this happen in the future. So we're really excited. And then just to wrap up, I want to give a big thanks to Travis for taking this project on. John Stegmeyer was a real initial force behind this, and then Travis picked it up and ran with it, and it's been really great to have your hard work on it. And then also our partnership with the Metropolitan Planning Organization has been critical. They provided funding along with the state, but the MPO also sat with us as a stakeholder and provided really critical guidance. And then finally, our awesome colleagues at Public Works, who also sat in on the stakeholder group and just gave us critical expertise along the way. Like, we could not have done it without these folks. So thanks to them. And then kind of in conclusion, I would just, oops, wrong key. Request that you consider approving the resolution of intent to adopt the Missoula County Pathways and Trails Master Plan as an
And
issue.
Darcy knows that this will one day allow children to be able to bike from Bonner to East Missoula. She
does.
Well, I'm just asking.
Yes, I don't know if Darcy does, but yes, indeed, the plan would call that out.
Contact her and let her know
Yes.
that
Yeah.
this will happen.
Be a good idea.
Yeah, we actually have just recently partnered with the MPO and Public Works and others to put in a grant application to do the planning work for that trail segment, which
Fantastic.
will be great if we can get it accomplished. Yep.
All right, I would move to approve the resolution of intent to adopt the Missoula County Pathways and Trails Master Plan as an issue
Oh,
plan.
hang on. We got public comment.
He's just, forget about public comment, this fascist community. Here we go. No. Is there any public comment? I don't see any. That was a joke. That was a joke earlier. Now I'm seeing that written up here. Nothing online, and any public comment in Sophie, please. Okay.
I think I got thrown for a loop by nobody being in the room, and I forgot that there's a cast of thousands listening in. So I would move to approve the resolution of intent to adopt the Missoula County Pathways and Trails Master Plan as an issue plan of the Missoula County Growth Policy.
Second. And does this mean that we get another crack at it though, since this is just the resolution of intent to adopt, or is this coming back to adopt it a month from now or something?
I'm not very good
Otherwise,
at-
it seems like we would just adopt the resolution.
You can't adopt the resolution. This is Karen Hughes.
Uh-huh.
So we do it, actually come back and adopt the resolution.
Yes, so this,
Yes.
you're obligated under statute to adopt a resolution of intent, and then it doesn't take very long, and then we bring you a resolution to adopt, and that's when it's officially adopted.
Okay, a resolution to adopt will be next month. Is that correct?
Is it
I
30
don't know
days?
when
or-
it's on the agenda.
Oh,
but,
okay. Okay.
And is the intent that in that interim, the public comments?
Public can comment
Nope.
all the way.
Yeah, the public can comment all the way. Yeah, I don't know why we set it up this way in statute. I wouldn't actually be all that surprised if there are changes to statute about this process, but yeah, it's kind of weird. We hold the public hearing. That's when we've always anticipated that most of the substantive comment would be addressed, would be with the resolution of intent. And then usually the resolution to adopt has been kind of a pro forma, kind of, a formality. But it is possible still to take public comment into consideration. But yeah, it's just the way the process is outlined in statute. So I don't have a good answer for why.
Thanks,
the way it is.
Karen. Okay, it's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim Worley, Granite Peak Estates subdivision.
I think that last item.
Oh, you're right. We need an applause.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
I know.
Right, for the record, Tim Worley with CAPS, or excuse me, Planning,
Yeah.
Development, and Sustainability. I'm too used to doing the CAPS thing. And commissioners, this is Granite Peak Estates Major Subdivision, which is a proposal by Jorge Owaka and Howard Ong for 8 lots, about 2 miles southeast of Frenchtown. The total acreage of the parent parcel is 13.22 acres. There are a series of 7 lots that range in size from about 0.8 of an acre to 1.2 acres, but lot 8 on the northern end is in excess of 6 acres and is designed to include some agricultural land preservation. And most of the graphics that you will see are essentially laid on their side with north to the left-hand side of the slides and south to the right-hand side. So this is the layout of the subdivision with Mullen Road along the western edge, Marcure Lane along the southern edge, the Frenchtown Irrigation Canal along to the east, and a little piece of rail link to the northeast. This property is unzoned, and the growth policy back in the mid-70s recommended open and resource uses generally for this area, but it also falls within Frenchtown's activity circle, which was the area designated for more intense uses within the sphere of Frenchtown. Again, here's the layout where you have, again, 7 lots being roughly 0.8 of an acre to about 1.2 acres, but then on the left-hand side of the slide, there's that larger lot that's in excess of 6 acres and designed to preserve agricultural land with a very specific building envelope for the home so that it is tucked in close to the dead-end road that's proposed to provide access to all 8 lots. Two public roads flank the subdivision, Mullen Road again to the west and Marcure Lane to the south, with a new private road being constructed within the subdivision. And there are two variances that come with this request, because there is a requirement, first of all, for 2 ways in and out of the wildland urban interface, and this subdivision provides just one access point onto Mullen Road. And then Marcure Lane to the south technically is supposed to be the access road, since it's the road of lesser classification. It's the less busy road. It's not Mullen Road. Both staff and planning board support those variances, mainly because Marcure Lane is separated from the parcel in question by irrigation infrastructure. And this area where the irrigation infrastructure is contained is actually a fee simple separate parcel. It's the strangest thing. Immediately to the north of Marcure Lane, we felt that was enough justification to support the two variances. There is a walkway proposed along the interior roadway. It is proposed to be of a crushed limestone or millings surface. Because the subdivision regulations require a hard surface, we are recommending that it be made of either concrete or asphalt. That's one of our recommended conditions. There are a small number of through lots created by virtue of the road design in the subdivision, and through lots are where the front and the rear of lots are bounded by roads. In our subdivision regulations, a specific mitigation is required. And in this case, that ends up being trees on regular centers within a no build, no access easement. And this area is proposed to be taken care of by the homeowners association. And this graphic illustrates how the trees will be planted along Mullen Road to provide essentially a screen for those homes.
Tim?
Yeah.
What is it? This is a really open, dry area, like trees don't grow here naturally. Is that correct?
Well, and I'll just move on quickly to, we do have a condition regarding the caretaking of this area. The trees that are required to be planted have to be a minimum of 6 feet tall and planted on 30-foot centers. So there needs to be a maintenance agreement as part of taking care of this landscaped area with a planting, watering, and maintenance plan. So yeah, these trees will need to be nurtured. They'll need to be irrigated actively, and the expectation is that they will live. So that's part,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
It's always good when your landscaping persists. The Frenchtown Irrigation Canal does run along the eastern edge of the project. And there's a very specific irrigation improvements plan for that lot on the north end that's in excess of 6 acres. And what's planned is a pump house, a pump, an irrigation main line that runs from north to south within that lot, as well as service lines that extend from that main north-south line. And so we do have a condition that requires the installation of this infrastructure and that information be included within the covenants. And this is essentially their proposal for this property, for this specific lot, and we're just requiring that it be implemented. And water rights will be directed to this lot 8 only, this lot on the northern end. And we do have a condition recommending the severing of water rights to the other 7 lots, just so it's clear and folks know immediately when they purchase a lot that one lot of the 8 has irrigation water that they can use. So there's a total of 8 wells proposed as part of this subdivision project. And because there's a 10-acre-foot ceiling, if you will, for water usage, the applicant has worked with DNRC to confirm what each lot can use for water. And I should note that Lot 8 has the benefit of irrigation water from the canal, so that should help the situation. They won't have to irrigate using their well. And there is a condition that wells must be metered for use so that combined they all use less than that 10-acre-foot total per year. I'm not even sure. Yeah, I don't know. It could be that IMEG might know that better. And I know there's some folks from IMEG on the call, but I don't,
Curious.
yeah, I'm not sure on that one. So the wells need to be metered, and typically what we've recommended is a reporting requirement so that this homeowners association would report annual usage to both DNRC and to planning. There is shallow groundwater on the property. It was detected in one portion of the subdivision. So IMEG volunteered that no basements would be allowed, and that's in the covenants. And we just want to reinforce that by saying that this section cannot be amended or deleted without approval of the county commissioners. And then that lot 8 on the northern end has what is being called an allowable build zone. And we're just recommending that this be depicted as a building envelope where dwellings and garages are contained wholly within that envelope closest to the road. Non-inhabited accessory structures can be outside of the envelope, but this is intended to keep that as an ag-focused lot while allowing for residential to happen closer to the road. There is a power line that crosses the northern edge of the property that you can see in the red line. And we're recommending that that be contained within a power line easement. Planning Board reviewed this on October 4th. They noted the value of this being agricultural land and supported the design of the largest lot for retaining some agricultural uses. There were 8 members present, and they voted unanimously to support the 2 variances as well as the subdivision itself. And we did receive 2 public comments through Missoula County Voice. There's a mobile home court to the north, and folks, there was one public comment that they have experienced some settling and sinkholes within their property, and also sand within. They have a public water system on that property. And the
How far to the north? Like
it's the property immediately to the north of this one. And I think it has to do, though I'm not certain, with their public water system very specifically. I don't know that it has to do with a general issue. Maybe IMEG can speak to that. We did go out to the site and actually drove around that mobile home court a couple months ago, and we didn't really observe anything that stood out, and certainly nothing that seemed to translate to this property. And then there was a second public comment south of Marcure Lane, the property owner immediately to the south. That property owner recommended that access for this subdivision should be off Mullen Road as opposed to Marcure. This person raises a number of animals and was concerned about their safety should Marcure Lane be used in any way for this subdivision. And he did note that there were some surface water ponding issues on the property. But again, that was something that we haven't observed either, but maybe IMEG can speak to that if there's a question about it. In summary, our recommendation and Planning Board's recommendation is for approval, and you have 2 variance motions, commissioners, as well as a main motion recommended for approval.
Thank you. Anyone from IMEG? Oh, there we go. I'm sorry, I can't see who that is. Would like to.
It's Joe Dennett with IMEG. I don't know how big I am on the main screen, but can you all hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'll grab a sip of water here. First off, thank you for everyone's time. It's been a long but productive meeting. My name is Joe Dennert, and I work for IMEG in the Missoula office. And I think I'm joined by a number of my coworkers here today. And we're representing the landowners, Mr. Horio Haka and Mr. Howard Ong. Tim, first and foremost, as always, thank you for your presentation. I think you've definitely laid the groundwork for an informed decision here today from the commissioners. And I'm not going to jump into a presentation for the sake of everybody's time. We believe that the Granite Peak Estates proposal it's really a great example of quality communication between landowner, representative, reviewers, and public agencies. We agree with the recommended conditions of approval, and we appreciate the unanimous recommendation of approval from the planning board. And truth be told, we're hoping for a favorable decision here today. I feel like my role is best served here to answer any questions you may have. I know there was a couple that was posed, and truth be told, I didn't quite hear them. So if there are any direct questions for IMEG or for me, I'm happy to answer them. But as always, thank you for your time and consideration, and we'll do our best to field any questions if asked. Thank you.
One question I had was how deep the wells were.
Oh, I don't, maybe
Or-
if
What's out there right now? So the current,
how deep the wells are for the public water supply for the mobile court to the north.
sure, or isn't there, or maybe I'm looking at something to the south. Is that the closest one?
Yeah, so is this in relation to the public comment? I'm just trying to narrow in on the question here, sorry.
Oh, I'm just wondering how deep the wells will have to be for these folks who are going to be out here. And it's
Okay,
in a very general sense. I'm not looking for something super specific.
okay. In a very general sense, I believe the wells are dug to a standard depth, and these won't be open bottom wells like the case that's happening for the public water supply system for the trailer court or for the mobile home court to the north. These wells will be built to current standards, which means perforated well casing, probably some well screens to prevent some of that clogging issue from occurring. And, I think the wells will likely be somewhere 75 to 85 feet deep.
So Joe, it's a little bit of apples and oranges then comparing the wells that will be put in here versus what is in the mobile home park public system that is apparently getting sand in the water.
The design is different. Yes. And that's what we were getting at there. The design is different. Fundamentally, yes, apples and oranges.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I can't remember what the second question was that Joe couldn't hear. It must not have been that important or memorable.
I got one.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I couldn't see the map super clearly, but a bunch of these lots were a little bit less than an acre. Is that correct?
Tim, if you have an exhibit, you can pull yours up, but if not, I can pull mine up. If I have the ability to share. I do not. Oh, there we go. I just got it. So I'll share an exhibit here. You'll have to let me know when you can see my screen.
Sure, thanks, Joe. I can see it, but it's pretty small. If there's a way to blow it up. Oh, there we go. Great.
I can zoom in and I can
That's
also
good.
Okay. So Tim mentioned it in his report, but essentially the Frenchtown activity area for this, which includes this property, has the recommended of 2 dwelling units per acre. And I think we're actually at 1.65 when you factor in the large lot 8 here, and then all of the lots 1 through 7 surrounding it. So I would say on average, they're about an acre for 1 through 7, and then the large proposed lot 8 here to the north.
And then each house has its own individual septic.
That's correct. There is not a public either wastewater treatment system or water supply system proposed with our subdivision.
And all these lots are big enough to handle a drain field, et cetera.
That's correct. Yep. And that's part of the preliminary process when we're looking, just to see if we can comply with DEQ. We don't want to get anything that actually can't be approved. So yes, that's correct.
So I think what's in my head is old, how to say standards, but old conventional wisdom that 1 per acre is what you needed for a drain field. But it's smaller. Are you saying that's smaller than that?
Well, I think there's a lot of factors here, to be honest with you. Site design is probably one of the biggest components, and we have to adhere to setbacks to various things. But yes, you are correct in saying that is an old rule. Yep.
Okay.
No
All
longer
right.
applicable.
All right. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Good.
Okay, I don't think we don't see anyone online. Any more comments or questions?
Have we
How do you
get
feel?
the motions back up, Tim?
Here, I got one right here.
We got 3.
Holy moly. Yeah, go, Dave, go.
Oh, there we go. Okay, I would move. I'm going to put this in active.
Ooh, no
okay,
zombies for Dave.
I move that we approve the variance from section 3.5.8.1 requiring a legitimate alternative escape route. Should we take these individually as, okay.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye. I move that we approve the variance from section 3.4.6.2 requiring access from the lower class road when more than one road abuts the subdivision.
Second that.
That's a funky read.
That
Okay.
is,
Okay, whatever works.
Any further discussion besides it being a funky read? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye. And finally, I move that we approve Granite Peak Estate subdivision based on the findings of fact and conclusions of law in the staff report and subject to the recommended conditions of approval in the staff report.
Second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thanks so much, Joe and Tim.
Thank you. And I just remembered that we need to be speaking slowly. Les did not interpret our words correctly. So
Yeah.
I guess we'll have fun with looking at the transcript. So.
What do you,
Thank
do you
you.
edit
Thank
and
you very much,
correct the
commissioners.
transcript?
Thank you.
Okay, so you can take out where I'm saying that the community is fascist? Yeah, okay, thanks. Yeah, yeah.
Something Jim Cusker said came up as skiing on here. I saw that earlier. So skiing. So I don't know.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
4:30, let's go.
Bye.
Okay.